Ohio State must make Jeremiah Smith the focal point of the game plan to beat Oregon.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, because Game Time has an exclusive offer for the Rose Bowl. 10% off tickets in the home corners, away corners, and end zones, making prices even better. These exclusive zone deals are specially selected sections of the stadium where fans can find deeper discounts by letting Game Time choose their exact seats for the game. During today's show, we'll discuss one thing the Buckeyes defense must do in the Rose Bowl, as well as who will be Will Howard's best friends while he's out there in Pasadena. But before we get to any of that, Ohio State must make Jeremiah Smith the focal point of their game plan to beat Oregon, because we all know what happens when Ohio State maximizes their talent. They win. They win a lot. They win over and over and over again. And this is one of those games you can't go in there with the wrong game plan or forsake just adjusting on the fly, because you might lose. But you got Jeremiah Smith, number 4. You got number 2 in Emeka Egbuka. You got some guys on Ohio State's offense that could be game changers or game wreckers. And when I think about a game wrecker on offense, I think about Jeremiah Smith. He's that dude. He's unreal. 12 touchdowns, over 1,000 receiving yards during his freshman campaign at Ohio State. A guy that said he wants to be pushed like a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant, a conversation that he had with Brian Hartline before the playoffs started. A guy that has the maturity of, say, a seasoned vet in college football, but he's only 19 years old. He just turned 19. There's so many positive about Jeremiah Smith, but he's even out there on the field and realizing that matchup y'all got on me is not going to work. What y'all are trying to do, it's night-night for you. It's just going to be embarrassing for you. Oh, you got this guy trying to guard me? It's night-night for him. I'm going to the end zone. Jeremiah Smith understands so many things. Then when you add in 6'3", 220, some say 225, he runs a 4.3 40. I haven't clocked him. I just watched my eyeballs with him on the football field. Homie runs a 4.3. Even if he runs a 4.4, he is a fast young man. And every time I watch Jeremiah Smith play, I realize Ohio State needs to get him the ball more. More against Tennessee, more against Penn State, more against Oregon, more against Indiana. Those are the top teams they played via the rankings. More. Get that man the ball more. Because there's no reason at all that he shouldn't have had 15 receiving touchdowns this year, and he could have been over 12 to 1,300 receiving yards this year as well through 13 games. That's what reality could have been. Even reality could have been, hey, if you do a couple things more, Jeremiah Smith, against Oregon, would Ohio State have been able to win the game? Maybe. I mean, these are things that are hypothetical. But that's the past. Moving forward, Will Howard, number 18, find a way to get the ball to number 4. I'm not here to project his stats for that game. I'm not trying to project and say, oh, he's going to do this. Oh, he's going to do that. I did that for TreVeyon Henderson. We're going to revisit that later on in today's show. But Jeremiah Smith just needs to be the guy that is a focal point of Ohio State's game plan to beat Oregon. But also, I think about Jeremiah Smith being the focal point and feeding Jeremiah Smith. I think about his running mates. A guy that wears number 2. A guy that wears number 17. Emeka Egbuka and Cardinal Tate. As Emeka Egbuka talked about, Ohio State really doesn't have a number 3 receiver. They have 3 number 1 receivers. And I think that's very accurate, because I said it to, I think it was Ryan Roberts, my favorite NFL draft analyst, and I said, hey, man, Cardinal Tate, if he was at any other school in the country, he'd probably be starting. Now, I don't know all the rosters backwards and forwards to know, oh, no, he wouldn't start here, but he would start there. I don't know all of that, but I would say there's a good chance that at almost any other school in the country, he would be a starting receiver. By the numbers and by the stats, he's the number 3 receiver, but, man, he is a dog. And the fact that Ohio State has 3 number 1 receivers going to Pasadena, going to the Rose Bowl, where the last time Ohio State was in the Rose Bowl, Jackson Smith and Jigba set records. What was it? 60 receptions, 300-plus receiving yards. He was just a dog. They had no answer for him. Running all up and down the sideline, all across the field. They had no answer. And him and C.J. Stroud were just dialed in and locked in and said, hey, man, whatever we got to do to win this game. If it's a 50-point win, a 3-point win, it does not matter. Whatever we got to do to win this game, we're going to make that thing happen. And they did that. I mean, shout out and hats off to those two guys. But that's be the same thing this time. For Will Howard, we see what happens with Ohio State when they simply just focus on their best players. Is the best player going to be Jeremiah Smith? Yes, give him the ball. Is one of the best players Mecca Buka? Yes, give him the ball. Is one of the best players Cardinal Tate? Yes, give him the ball. Whatever you got to do to get your best guys the ball, make sure you make that thing happen. It shouldn't be rocket science because it's not. It's simple. If I'm Chip Kelly, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I got my notepad out. I'm on the plane, flying out to Pasadena, and I'm trying to take my notes and trying to get things right. And I'm trying to think, okay, we see what Oregon did on the film. We see exactly what Oregon does well. We see what Oregon does as a football team. And I'm trying to sit here and realize, if Oregon puts this matchup out, which one of these three guys should I focus on? It really shouldn't matter. All three of them can get open. All three of them know how to attack different defenses. All three of them know how to attack different, is it bump and run or however the quarter's lined up on them. All three of them know how to do certain things. So it really shouldn't matter. But with those three guys, it's a huge luxury. And I don't like going out and saying focus on the outside guys. But when it comes to this team, I think you got to figure out how to get the ball in that guy's hands on the outside. Now, the one luxury that you have with Jeremiah Smith, and really all three of these guys, but we mainly see it with Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Buka, they can both go in motion, be more of a touch sweep or jet sweep. I'm in EA Sports College Football 25. Jet touch pass is what that was in my brain. Jet touch pass. The jet touch pass or the jet sweep or whatever it might be, the smoke screens or the tunnel screens, whatever it is. Find various ways. Be very creative. But while you're being creative, utilize three guys. Number 17, number 2, and number 4. But while focusing on those three guys, number 4 needs to be the guy. One thing I said a lot when Ezekiel Elliott was at Ohio State was feed Zeke. You saw him all the time. Get that spoon out. Hey, saying feed me. And I love when he do that because you could tell he was just in the zone. And that's one thing I think about when I think about Jeremiah Smith in this game in the Rose Bowl. It's the granddaddy of them all. It's the one game New Year's Day, 5 p.m. Eastern. You're going to get that flyover. You're going to have the contrast between the game being in the daytime and then ending in the nighttime. I mean, it's just that bowl game that gets everybody tapped into it. And I hope at some point during this game, we get a flashback to Ezekiel Elliott. Not that Jeremiah Smith is going to play a running back like Zeke, but Jeremiah Smith just goes out there and he starts cooking, starts feeling it. Hey, man, feed me. Just give me the rock, feed me, because you need to have him. You want him to have that kind of mindset. You want your best players in this kind of game, when it's do or die, win or go home, to not have a 1-2-3 Cancun mindset, but to have a 1-2-3 who we playing next mindset. That's what you want your guys to have, the kind of mindset you want your players to have. And for Jeremiah Smith, I think he understands the assignment. For Cardinal Tate and Emeka Buka, I also believe they understand the assignment. And I just can't wait to see these three guys play in the Rose Bowl against Oregon. They're hungry for payback. They're hungry for more. They want to make sure at the end of the day, they are not heading home and for the end of the season, but they're heading back to the Columbus, preparing for yet another college football playoff game. For Ohio State to be preparing for another college football playoff game at the end of the day on New Year's Day, Will Howard's best friends must make sure they protect their boy. I'll dive into who I'm talking about next. This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. This episode is brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more. And the best service is Central Ohio. Everything you need for in-home and backyard entertainment is at Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus carries the best pool tables from Brunswick, Ohio, Canada, billiards, and more. And the grills, whether you like charcoal or gas or wood-fired, Billiards Plus has a perfect setup for all grillers. No matter the season, Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole staff will always go above and beyond to give you the best customer service in the industry. And check out some of their new games in stock now. Billiards Plus, visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Thank you all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. One thing I know when thinking about Will Howard going into this game in Pasadena is that there are going to be some guys he needs to rely on. May it be the guys on the outside, yes. May it be the guys on defense, yes. But there are some specific players Will Howard needs to rely on. I'm going to call them Will Howard's best friends while he's out there in Pasadena. Some of you might automatically be thinking about a certain position group. You're correct. But those aren't the only players inside of this group. Think about the running backs, the tight ends, and the offensive line. Now, running backs is easy because, you want to run the ball, hand the ball off to number 32 or to number 1. Tight ends, okay, cool. Kind of the check down masters or kind of the guys that can steal the edge out there in pass pro. Okay, cool. Offensive line, that's where it starts. And I do think Will Howard's best friends, it's all three of those position groups. The tight ends getting their job done. The running backs, not just in running the ball, but in every area time they're on the field, getting that job done. But also when it comes for the offensive line, because this week you're still going to have a feature for the offensive line that is unlike something I've ever seen in a playoff game. We saw it once in a playoff game. We're going to see it again in another playoff game. It makes me very, very nervous. I'm not going to lie to you to realize that Ohio State is still going to rotate at guard. Tegra Shabola is probably going to start. You're probably going to have Austin Servo starting at left guard, and then Luke Montgomery is going to be the rotating piece. I understand the thought process behind it. I still find it very, very weird and odd. That'll work against Tennessee. Will it work against Oregon? I have my thoughts about that. I have some doubts. I get why I still have some more doubts. It's just very weird. But Will Howard has to trust these guys and also has to put these guys in the right situations. Sometimes it may just be simply changing the protection at the last minute. That's how you can help these guys. Because if you see something they're not calling out, make a quick check, make the thing work. Oh, okay, maybe we're cooking with gas. We're cooking really quickly now. These are the things I think Will Howard can do with the offensive line. Now, his best friends is all of them, but Will Howard can't get his job done if the offensive line is not blocking well. When it comes to the offensive line this week, they're going to be looking at a different threat this week than they were the first time the Bucs and the Ducks played. I think it was the Thursday before the game. There was circulating around Twitter that Jordan Burch got carted off the practice field. And people are saying, oh, did it happen? Did it not happen? Did it happen? Did it not happen? And there was a lot of speculation about what Jordan Burch's status is going to be for that game. Ultimately, he was ruled inactive for the game. And, Mateo Uyunglele played phenomenal. Harmon on the interior played phenomenal. Those guys rose to the occasion and said, oh, our buddy's not here? Cool. We got to rise up and play better and play out of our minds because he's not here. They played phenomenal. Fryer and Jackson, two guys that I think are going to play guard at the next level, not play tackle, are going to be facing their biggest test of the year. Now, Donovan Jackson had to deal with Abdul Carter, which is a phenomenal defensive player. I think the difference is the two ends at Oregon are going to pose a very elite threat to both Josh Fryer and Donovan Jackson all night long. And I do think that's going to be one of those things to where rotating at guard could be very, very tricky. However, they got to figure it out. No matter how tricky it is, you got to figure it out. And for Will Howard, help those guys up front. Make sure he's helping them protect Howard, making sure those guys are getting everything done. Well, I think about his best friends. I mentioned Henderson earlier and Judkins. I do think this is going to be more of a Henderson game than a Judkins game, simply because I think Henderson's what cut and go aspect and not really trying to. With Judkins, I think is better suited for between the tackles. I think Henderson's speed is going to be one of those things that can be more one of the areas that Ohio State wants to utilize when thinking about Chip Kelly with his notepad on the plane. Okay, what can we work on the plane that can help us in the game? Oh, we got 32. We've already tried to maximize his usage during practice leading up to us getting up in the air. Well, there's some other ways we can utilize number 32 on the field. And he's just going to start going into his lab or his notepad, just trying to jot stuff down, writing stuff down. Next thing you know, Chip Kelly has 4 or 5 more plays where it's like, oh, this works, that works, this works, that works. Why? It is all geared to help number 32 be a phenomenal piece of the pie in the game. And I do think when I didn't project any stats for Jeremiah Smith earlier, I'm going to revisit something that I said about TreVeyon Henderson in this upcoming in this game. Last week for TreVeyon Henderson, as we get those words kind of coming together in clear formation, I made a comment about TreVeyon Henderson saying that he was going to have 100 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, which would be his first game this year of having 100 plus rushing yards in a game. It's hard to believe a running back like him, who has had really a good year, a decent year, hasn't had 100 yards rushing in a game this year at all. It's really surprising. But I think this is the game. And honestly, it wouldn't shock me if the carry split between him and Judkins isn't as even as it has been, because I don't think it really needs to be this week. I think this is one of those where put the guy out there that gives you the best chance to win and don't care about ruffling no feathers. Don't care about none of that stuff. Do what you got to do to win the game. Ryan Day said it earlier. We got to do whatever it takes. That's the mindset. And I think right now, while Oregon has speed, while Oregon has physicality, I think TreVeyon Henderson has that elite trait that's key for a game like this. And I think TreVeyon Henderson is a guy, when you go into this game, you're thinking about a guy that has been here for a while, that's been hurt by not winning some games, that's been hurt by not winning Big Ten championships, multiple, or even one, that's been hurt by not beating Michigan. He was on the team the first time the Buckeyes lost to Oregon in 2021. So, not the first time Ryan Day lost to Oregon. So, there are so many things that he's trying to get revenge for. One of the few guys on the team, might I add. So many things in his mind. He knows what it felt like to lose on that day in October 12th. He knows what it was like as a freshman to lose on that day in week 2 or week 3 in the 2021 season. He knows what it's like. He remembers that feeling with Troy Malowow and Sawyer. He remembers all of that, Emeka Buka. He remembers the emotions. And you know what? Bottle all that up and realize it's whatever it takes, man. My coach needs me to rise to the occasion. Be that shining light. Be the rose in the Rose Bowl. He wants me to be that dude. And I got to do that. He's calling on me to have a bigger role. And I got to respond when my number is called. He is calling on me to be a bigger piece of the pie. And I got to make sure that piece of the pie that I bring fits in the rest of the pie for the entire team. He is asking me to do so many big boy things on a big boy stage for a big boy reason to keep our season alive. And I got to make sure I put myself in the right situation to rise to the occasion. Yeah, Judkins, I believe in you. Bennett Christian, Will Kazmarek, G. Scott Jr., Jelani Thurman. All y'all going to be a big piece of the pie in this game. The best friends, though, in this one is those 6 guys up front, because they're going to use 6, and number 32. Those are the guys that the Buckeyes must lean on to get the job done in Pasadena, and those are Will Howard's best friends. They got to help Will Howard, and Will Howard has to help them. While they're helping Will Howard, the defense can also help Will Howard by giving the Buckeyes offense the ball in favorable field position by accomplishing 1 goal in the Rose Bowl. Thank you all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. One thing I think about is the Rose Bowl week. It's the Monday before the game on Wednesday. It's New Year's Day, man. It's a big day in college football. It has been for my entire life, probably has been for your entire life. The Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. Honestly, I was sitting there when it was when the game was being finished, Ohio State and Tennessee. Seems like a lifetime ago now. I was sitting here thinking. Now I know Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit had the call. I mean, I looked the thing up before the playoff even started about who was going to call the Rose Bowl. Part of me still wishes Brent Musburger could be on the call of that game, or the late great Keith Jackson could come back and call that game with Kirk Herbstreit. Nothing against Chris Fowler. I think he's done a phenomenal job of being a great broadcaster. But I think in this time, man, I just get a little nostalgic. I do, man. I get nostalgic all the time. Talk to my wife. She understands it. I get a little nostalgic. And I wish some of those times, it would be some of those times when some of those old guys would come back. But also I'm thinking about Keith Jackson and Brent Musburger calling the game with Kirk Herbstreit. I'm also thinking about one thing that we want from Ohio State's defense. It's kind of not so much a lost start, but they did it the last time they were on the field in a great way. And it's also something that they have done in such a great way recently that is something I do think this team must do against Oregon. Get pressure on Dylan Gabriel. I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm just telling you to do it. I don't care if it's rushing, if it's blitzing all the time and also covered on the back end. I'm not saying if it's just rushing forward and covering on the back end with everybody else. I'm not telling you how to do it. But be in relentless pursuit of Dylan Gabriel. I would also add, though, that there are some specific things the Buckeyes defense has done since that loss to Oregon that I do think is something that with the re-engineered defense is going to be very, very huge for Ohio State in this game. Since that Oregon game, we mentioned it and everybody has, but it's so true. We got to say it again. Ohio State hasn't allowed a passing touchdown since the Oregon game. Going up against Nico Iamaleava, going up against Curtis Warwick. Didn't give up one passing touchdown against those two quarterbacks that are really good quarterbacks, really good throwers of the football. That's great. Tip of the cap. Another one. Who was it? Nebraska quarterback. Can't think of his name. It escapes me. Forgive me. Dylan Raiola. I don't know why it took me that long to get his name. But Dylan Raiola, you would think he was going to come into Ohio State, and where he probably committed to play at Ohio State. Going to come over there and trying to sling that thing all around the yard. Couldn't do it. I mean, it wasn't the best day for Ohio State. But they didn't give up a passing touchdown against that young man. Also, Ohio State has 5 interceptions and 22 sacks since the Oregon game. But also, Ohio State has only given up 121 passing yards per game over the last 7 games they've played. And so when you think about all of those amazing stats, those are great. But also when they played the last time, Dylan Gabriel went 23 of 34, 341, and 2 touchdowns through the air. He also had 1 rushing too. So all of the ones that's happened since the last time they played Oregon, that's great. But Dylan Gabriel was phenomenal the last time they played. Will he have another phenomenal game? He could. But Tuimoloau and Sawyer need to put together back-to-back great games together for the first time in their career. I think for the first time, and they kind of echoed that too after the game, that was the first time they both had great games together at the same time. They want to say, Jay, is that true? You tell me. You a Buckeye fan just like I am. We watch every snap. When was the last time you saw Tuimoloau and Sawyer play great in the same game? Not counting the Tennessee game. I'll wait. I ain't going to give any verbal tap dancing. I'll just kind of stop talking because I don't think it's happened at all. Now, the difference is it can happen this week. But also, it just can't be those two guys. I think Tyleik Williams and the way that he was able to pressure Nico Iamaleava last week, or was a week and a half ago, this time period in between these games, that's messing with my brain. And then you add in the fact that it's in between Christmas and New Year's, and most people lose track of time between Christmas and New Year's. That's what my brain is, man. Also count in today on a Sunday, we took down the Christmas tree, put up some stuff for my son. He has a playpen now, rearranged some stuff in our apartment. It's like my brain is just, and then some other stuff going on that I'm not going to talk about here on the show. That's just like, my brain is just mush. Maybe it's just mush right now. But Tyleik Williams was phenomenal against Tennessee. And we highlighted it a couple times in the Buckeyes squad show after the game. And then also myself and Jeff Hunt on the Monday pod last week also highlighted Tyleik Williams and how his pursuit of Nico Iamaleava was great, but it was also aided by great coverage by the secondary of Ohio State. And so when you think about relentless pursuit, yes, it's easy to say, get pressure on the quarterback, get pressure on the quarterback. But sometimes that is aided by the elite coverage in the secondary. We all remember what happened the last time these two teams played. It could have been another slump or another downward spiral of Denzel Byrd. Also, it helped Jermaine Matthews Jr. get a little bit more playing time. We've seen Lorenzo Styles get on the field a little bit more. What else have we seen? We see Jordan Hancock play a lot more deep safety, where I was saying, hey, put Jordan Hancock out there at outside safety. Jim Knowles said, no, we're going to play more at deep safety. Also, what have you seen? You've seen, now Ohio State runs a 4-2-5, but sometimes you've seen Caleb Downs come down and be more of a triangle with the linebackers and be more of a Mike linebacker. So you see Jim Knowles have so many different looks. Lathan Ransom, between Ransom, Hancock, and Downs, they're in so many different spots, it's going to confuse any quarterback. Dillon Gabriel has played phenomenal in big-time games. Think back to his times playing in Red River. Think back just literally playing against Ohio State. He is a guy that has risen to the occasion. Not the tallest guy. He is left-handed, which is another thing to think about with Ohio State. When think about getting relentless pursuit, you're rushing a quarterback that throws the opposite of all the other quarterbacks that you play. That's another thing to think about. But also, I think one thing, kind of a negative, one thing about relentless pursuit, the first time these two teams played, Ohio State had a guy on their team named Aaron Nolan. Now, Aaron Nolan is a left-handed quarterback. And with Aaron Nolan being a left-handed quarterback, he was your scout team quarterback because he wasn't playing no football this year. Not his fault. He's a fifth-string quarterback. He's an incoming freshman trying to figure this thing out. The Buckeyes don't have Aaron Nolan right now to be on the scout team because he has since transferred to South Carolina. Going back down south, going to the SEC country where he's originally from, to play football. Not mad about it. Go down there in South Carolina, be a Gamecock, do your thing, man. But the Buckeyes don't have him on the scout team right now. They don't have his left-handed arm to sling the thing around to simulate what it's like getting a ball thrown from a left-handed quarterback to prepare for a left-handed quarterback. So while relentless pursuit is a thing, figure out if you got to get pressure with 4 or blitz. It's preferred to get pressure with 4, but you realize sometimes that might not be a goal you can achieve. So you got to figure out another way. But also think about not having a left-handed quarterback. That's not a blessing in disguise. That's a downfall. Now, you can still win the game, but it's one of those areas in game prep you don't have the ability to use right now, but you did have the ability to use it a while ago. Relentless pursuit of Dillon Gabriel. It's one of those things. I think I was playing at Belzer Middle School. It was either 7th or 8th grade football. Forget the coaches' names. I forget all the coaches from Belzer Middle School, man. It was a long time ago. I ain't that old, but man, my memory ain't the best. And I forget all them coaches. Anyways, one of the 7th or 8th grade. One of the coaches, it was literally my first or second year playing football in my lifetime. I didn't play football until middle school. I believe we missed soccer signups that year. For some reason, my mom doesn't remember. I don't know why we missed soccer signups that year. But ended up going to play football at Belzer. Putting pads in pants, didn't know a girdle. Buddy, I didn't know about none of that stuff. But I remember one of those coaches talking about relentless pursuit. I'm thinking, okay, cool, man, I play offense. I'm a center. Relentless pursuit. But it stuck in my brain. All these years later, thinking about the relentless pursuit of the quarterback. I didn't play defense till I was in high school, but I remember that line, man. Be in relentless pursuit at all times, no matter what. Relentless pursuit. And that needs to be at the mindset of all these guys on defense. relentless pursuit. Actually, the entire team. As your relentless pursuit of the quarterback, the team can be in relentless pursuit of that trophy that they can win at the end of the day. And then, another trophy, the Cotton Bowl trophy at the end of the day. And then the national championship. But you can't get to the Natty. You can't even think about winning the Cotton Bowl until you beat Oregon. Simply look at that Oregon Duck and say, we want to take that team down. I'm not trying to get you to abuse a mascot. I ain't about that life. I am about the life of discussing Ohio State football in ways they can beat their next opponent, which happens to be the Oregon Ducks, who is the only team in college football that is undefeated. Got to keep that in mind. They have found ways against every opponent to end that game victorious. Will it happen against Ohio State? We got to wait till New Year's Day to find out. Thank y'all for tapping on Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes on a Monday. We'll see you next time.